Greetings everyone. This is Chris, and this is ABW Radio Live. Hello to you all. I know there's some people in the chat room already. Christ, you're keen. I'm joined by three wise men this evening. Well, two wise men and John. We have got Dom, first of all, from Australia. Good evening, Dom.
Good evening. Can you stop wiggling around in your chair? You look like Michael J. Fox.
Oh,
Tonight we will not be joined by Dom. Thanks, Dom. I will try and sit still, I promise. We're also joined by Mr. Jace in America, right, Jace?
America!
Who, Jace is feeling a little bit rough today, aren't you, Jace?
We did. We went all cockle-in goal celebration last night at the bar and partied a little too hard. So
had a couple.
But, 3 points is a good cure for a hangover.
Amen to that. Amen to that. And John, of course, I was only winding you up. It's Mr. John Welsh. You all right, Johnny?
Yes, I'm very happy.
Good.
Yeah, I don't really like the wise men thing. That's far too religious a connotation, especially coming from Jesus. Budget Jesus, I should say.
Budget Jesus. Little Jesus, budget Jesus. Call me whatever you want. I don't give a monkey's. It's all good. Right, okay. Now, I'm not going to lie.
Buy two wise men, get one free.
Yes, exactly, yeah. or buy two and don't get two free. I'm not going to lie, it's not going to be much to talk about game-wise today, but we'll do our very best. Final score obviously was Burnley 0, Arsenal 1, as you'll see from the title. Let's go from the order we introduced them from then. Dom, give us your initial sort of thoughts and general sum up of the game.
Yeah, in our WhatsApp group before the game, I was quite adamant that it was going to be a very tight game. We've seen some pretty big sides go there and struggle to get wins. They've been very good at not conceding a bunch of goals. If it was a 3-4 goal game, that would have surprised me more than the Liverpool score, to be honest, when you sort of analyse the two teams and the differences in how they both play. It was always going to be a tight one, so it's one of those ones that was always, well, for me anyway, going to have to be a grind. And fortunately for us, we were good enough to get the job done. They had a few little chances towards the end of the game, which I'm sure that was the game plan all along, to try not to let us get too far ahead and see if they can snatch something late. But we defended quite well. So yeah, like you said, there's not too much to go into for today's game, but overall it's one of those ones that you might not be as pretty on the eye as we'd hope, but 3 points nonetheless. Absolutely.
You sound a bit hoarse there, mate. Have you been shouting at the telly, or?
No, I was out earlier and the throat's giving me the willies, but we'll soldier on.
As long as you're well, that's all that matters. Jace, what was your sort of thoughts on watching through blurry eyes and trying to shake the heavy head? Was that the performance you were looking for, or was it more all about the result? You're on mute, by the way.
Let me do that. All about the result. It's not about how you get unmuted. It's just the fact that you get unmuted. It's not about how you get 3 points. It's just that you get 3 points.
Well saved.
But yeah, I think any performance now where you get 3 points is a good performance. Especially, I actually, you got to tip your hat to Burnley, because they pressed very well. They were very organized, and there were times when they really were closing our players down quickly. And I think there were parts of the game when we really showed our quality and our class. But a little frustrating not to pad the score line and make it another sort of nail biter at the end when they had a couple of chances. But I think overall it was maybe not the performance we wanted, but it was the performance we deserved. And we got what we needed, and that's the most important thing. And now we've got this great win streak that we haven't won 8 games on the trot since we didn't lose any games in 03-04. So good positive signs toward the end of the season, and we just hope we can keep the momentum rolling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll come to you, John. There's not a lot to add, in truth. To anything else you wanted to sort of specifically pick up on today?
No, I was a bit more adventurous in my prediction. I think I said 3-0, and I was expecting maybe a sort of flurry of late goals in the last sort of 5 minutes, maybe something like that. But I think Don was right when he made his prediction earlier that it was going to be a tough game. You can look at Burnley's league position, and I don't think it really shows you how good a team they are. They do work very hard. They don't have the best technical quality. They've got some good players like Boyd and Danny Ings and people like that. But league position, although it should say how good a team you are, I don't think it always works. You can look at teams like Leicester, who are bottom of the league, and there's no way that they're the worst team in the league at all. And I don't think Burnley's position really shows what ability they've got. So it's always going to be tough. It's one of those sort of physical games. They're going to block the middle of the park, force you wide. They've got two centre-backs who've come up from the Championship who are going to be used to dealing with crosses in the box, which is not something we really do anyway. I felt a bit sorry for Giroud because the amount of times he must have ran away from the penalty spot after he made the first run to not have the ball delivered. It must be so frustrating. But yeah, no, it's all about the result. And to be honest, if we scrape every single game from now 1-0 to the end of the season and we don't play particularly great, I couldn't give a shit because it means we win the FA Cup and we finish second.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'll come back to Jace on this one. Jace, Aaron Ramsey obviously got the winning goal. He was played in a sort of a more of a wide right role in the interview. I don't know whether you saw the same interview as we got over here on Sky, but they asked him about it after the game, and he pretty much said, "I'm just happy to be in the team," which is kind of the attitude you want. What did you make of his performance today? He's sort of slowly getting back to fitness.
Yeah, he's getting there. We can't rush in, with any of these players coming back. Even I know a lot of people are, slagging Theo off because he's not, performing how we think he should, even though he just came off of a year-long layoff. So for Ramsey to come back and now find his form after I think he's been back, a couple months now. I think that's really good, and being able to shake the injuries, and Dom can attest to the recovery time and what it really takes to get your confidence back in your legs to be able to go full out all the time. So great to see him. I thought, I don't think anybody had an A+ performance today. I think probably Coquelin probably was one of my top guys, but I think Ramsey. The good thing is before he really hit his form when he was coming back from injury and was played out on the wings, he sort of seemed to not really know where he was at times on the pitch, and that's when everybody started nicknaming him back pass Ramsey and side pass Ramsey. But today it seemed like he had a little more sort of cutting edge to his game from that position, which is good to see him add that versatility.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yes, it's good to kind of have. I mean, having all these players coming back, which we'll touch on a bit later on, is good. John, the sort of defensive side of things. Obviously, it's a 1-0 game. It's tight. It was, I think, towards the last start of the second half and the last sort of 10-15 minutes. I was like, we're fairly comfortable, but you just never know. Lancashire was past fit. It was quite unquite our sort of fittest or our most available first choice back four today. What did you make of the defensive performance?
Yeah, it was fairly solid. I mean, I thought Monreal had a very good game, again, as he has done all season. Bellerin got caught a couple of times, but I think that partly goes down to Burnley's work rate. I mean, it's not often you see teams that have their left winger and left back attacking us down one side. Not that he wasn't helped defensively, just, it's sort of more old-style fashion wing play that you don't really see so much these days. Mertesacker had Vokes to deal with, who's quite a physical player, but dealt with him well. I think they got him once or twice. There was that Boyd chance that he didn't connect with. I was quite surprised actually because I think he's quite a good player, but he missed that. Other than that, they didn't really get him behind us too many times. I think a lot of that was down to Coquelin obviously breaking up the play as well. But yeah, no, they look solid. We did actually have a quick question that relates to the back four about, does anyone know why Gabriel wasn't in the squad?
He was ill, apparently. Dom called it.
Okay, he was ill, yeah. That was the only real sort of surprise for me, defensive-wise, because I thought Koscielny, there was obviously doubts about whether he was fully fit for today. Obviously, they did pass him fit, but I thought Gabriel might have come in for the game. But no, I thought they dealt with everything that was thrown at them. Ospina made some good saves. Especially from was it Trippier, I think, free kick.
Yeah.
So they were pushed a little bit, but I wasn't overly worried. It was only sort of there was that last bit right in the last couple of minutes when they just sort of the scramble on the edge of the box. Other than that, I didn't really see Burnley scoring.
No, I think that's a fair comment. I'll touch on Burnley in a second, but Dom, Francis Coquelin, obviously, I think we're all sort of happy that he's there now. There's no point going over old ground about how he wasn't there earlier or how we didn't find him earlier. We've got him now, and just game to game, he just continues to do this brilliant job. There was an interview with Thierry Henry over here on Sky before the game, and he described him as the policeman. And he said that he just patrols in front of people so that they can do their jobs, or behind people so they can do their job and enjoy their football. Obviously, you're very sort of well known to love the idea of having a certain man from Southampton come and join him. But what do you think of Coquelin and his performance today again?
I think what it's shown, hopefully, some of the other players in the side is that when given a chance to, like the Jeff, our very own Jeff on the podcast earlier this week was saying that Coquelin wanted to be a box-to-box midfielder, and they basically said, "Look, mate, this is the role we need you to do for the team. This is what we need you to do now. We need you to sit back. We need you to protect the back four with Arteta out and Flamini was out at the time. And all you can do is take your hat off to the guy because his application and his dedication to actually do exactly what was asked of him has been absolutely A+. And I think it's something that Chesney and Wilshere and some of the other players in the squad could take a little leaf out of his book and think, you know what, it's not all about me, it's about the team. And I think we've been starved of a player like that for so long. We've been crying out for one that he's actually getting the credit from the fans, which is a great thing because it's going to just hopefully spur him on to keep doing that role and to not think that he has to go and cover himself in glory to get noticed by the fans because, it's pretty obvious the way that we speak about him after games now is that we're very, what he's doing is very noticeable. So I think it speaks volumes for the kid. I really do. He was on the outers, he was on the fringes, he'd been out on loan for a long time. It was basically last chance saloon for the guy, and he got asked to play a completely different role to what he'd been used to, and yet he's come in and done a fantastic job. But the other thing that I will quickly point out on the whole defensive midfielder argument is there was some talk in sort of the last window or so when Arteta was doing that role that perhaps the old school defensive midfielder is now dead in the modern game, and that you need a ball playing defensive midfielder. I think what he's shown is that that's not necessarily the case at all, because if he can just his one of the skills that he has that I don't see any other Arsenal player having, and very few players in the Premier League having, is the timing of his slide tackles, where he doesn't just dispossess the ball. It's almost like he dispossesses and passes at the same time and/or retains the ball. And then from there, all he has to do is pop up and play a 2-metre pass. He doesn't have to play long raking passes. He doesn't have to be a Xavi Alonso back there. He just needs to do his job, get the ball to your Ramses and your Ozils and your Cazolas, and trust your forwards that they can do the rest. So hopefully what it's done for the manager is get him to see that, yes, that is a position that, no, you don't need a very technical player back there, so to speak. You need a disciplined athlete back there that can read the game. And that's what I think he may not get the credit for, is his ability to read the play, the amount of times that he puts himself between the passer and the forwards and is able to intercept the ball and just do all of those things and be in the right place at the right time. All you can do is take your hat off to the kid, because he's just done exactly what's been asked of him, and he's done it very, very well.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And like I said before, we've got him now, so let's be happy we've got him. Whether it took us a year to find him or not, we've got him now. Also, the manager has to have a lot of credit, I think, because the tactics have clearly changed from this sort of all-out offensive style. We've clearly sort of sat there and thought we can't carry on playing like we did away at Swansea, for example, where it's just everyone forward. So there's got to be some credit going there as well. I'll come back to you, Jace. With regards to the attacking side of things today, Olivier Giroud didn't get on the score sheet today, but he looked sort of effective. He's making himself a nuisance. As Ozil showed a couple of good touches. That back heel in particular in second half was that was just lovely. Do you have any worries at all about the fact we looked a little bit, I don't even know what the word is really, stifled probably? I mean, we knew what Burnley would give us, and once we broke through, we didn't really press for the second goal. So do you have any concerns about the forward play at all today?
Not really. You sort of take these games almost like this as a one-off with the way we've been playing recently. So I think a little bit of it again, you've got to tip your hat to Burnley, because they did a great job in sort of taking him out and not allowing him to receive the ball sort of anywhere centrally. If you notice, when he was getting the ball a lot near the box, it was on the edges of the box. So I think they did a really good job pushing him wide there. Like you said, we weren't able to get an early cross into him for him to not even knock down for another player. So I think they did a great job with their center back, sort of pushing him out of where he's most effective and making him work a little bit harder. He's still a nuisance, still going to be a nice physical forward that you can punt the ball up to and hope a player gets it. And I don't think it's anything of a pattern that we've happens the next 2 or 3 games. Yeah, when you start worrying about it, but right now I don't think it's anything that we need to be too concerned with. There's too much quality. No matter who we bring in, there's too much quality. Whether it's Welbeck coming in or Giroud off the bench and Welbeck starting and Sanchez, and you can even throw Zicky in there at times as well. We have too much quality for it to be stagnant for too long.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then Guna just said, actually, he's got a point. He said that he's not sure he agrees. He feels that Giroud was anonymous today. Maybe he just wasn't watching him close enough, but he didn't look all that effective. I can certainly see why you'd think that. His movement is still very good, though. That's the thing I like about Giroud. Even though he's having a quiet day, just the size of the guy and the presence generally will draw defenders. And if you watch the way he plays, he seems to be able to adjust. Whether if we're looking to go long, he plays on the last man, and if we're being stifled, he will drop deep and try and involve the player on the edge of the box. So I still think he's the best at doing what we need him to do, that we could get. John, I want to ask you with regards to Burnley. It's very rare we give the opposition any credit on this show, but I feel like sort of patting the puppy on the head, so to speak. But I thought they were good. I mean, they were very limited. I think that's fair to say. And their fans, which I'll come on to in a minute, are just fools. But credit where credit's due. I think we had a conversation, but I think Tom and Dom had a conversation, actually, funny enough, where Dom was sort of on the side of the fence of saying, well, this is the sort of game we could slip up in, and Tom was on the side of the fence saying, well, if we need to win, we'll win when it's most important. But credit to Burnley. I think had we not have got the goal, this could have been one of those games, couldn't it?
Yeah, I think it definitely would have been a struggle. There was good build-up in the play to the goal before I don't know how many shots was it that were blocked and bodies thrown on the line before it fell to Rambo. But there was good build-up play in that. But I think Burnley have got something like, I haven't got the exact stats, but I think they run further than any other team in the league. They make more sprints than any other team in the Premier League. Sean Dyche knows that his players aren't as gifted. He's kind of like Wenger. In fact, I mean, Burnley don't have much money to spend, but even if they did, he didn't go out. He went out and got players like Matt Taylor, who you saw come on at the end there. But Matt Taylor wasn't in the side that got him up in the Championship, so he doesn't get in the team because he's very loyal to his players, and he's like, no, you got us here, so you get the chance to play. And they work really, really hard for him. I do think there is some ability in the team when you look at Vokes, who was out, I think, for the first couple of months at the start of the season. They really missed him, but Danny Ings is a good player. I know there's talks about him moving to Liverpool, or interested, and a couple of sort of other, I'd say, middle of the table clubs are interested in signing him. So they've got some ability, but they are very much, this is our structure. We're 4-4-2. We work the lines, no gaps in between, and we work very hard and work for each other. Thierry Henry was highlighting it before the game. There's no gaps between the lines. It's very, very hard. It was very rarely where you saw Ozil or Cazorla manage to turn with the ball and run into space at the defence. They'd get the ball and they'd have the midfield. They were on them. If they play it into Giroud didn't have space to let back to anyone. It was, and that's credit to them and the way their system they work. And I think, like Don was saying earlier, it was clearly a sort of a tactic of you play for a certain amount of time and then they push for the last 15 minutes because they are so fit. Because it's the one thing, if you can work hard, then you've always got a chance in a game of football. Yeah,
I couldn't agree more. Let's take credit where credit's due. Before I come to you, Dom, I'd just like to say, as for you, Tim Sherwood, well done. They are hilarious up there, aren't they? North London power trip. Oh, the power is moving. North London is white. What a fucking bunch of delusional twats. Anyway, Dom, I know it's not a massive sort of part of the game, etc., but the Burnley fans were constantly at the referee, particularly in the first half, where it seemed like our players were, or they thought our players were going down too easily. Do you agree with me, or am I alone in saying that they were fouls? Granted, we made a little bit of the most of it, but when you go to these grounds, I think too much is made of the fact that these lesser players do tend to kick a little bit, and I just thought that they were fouls. Did you agree or disagree?
I think there was probably a couple there that I thought perhaps we went down a little bit too easy. Played for the free just a touch. I think Giroud was one that didn't look like he had too much contact there, and he went on the ground. But look, I've been on the pod before, and I've kind of not accused referees, but I've sort of said that I think referees get sucked into letting teams kick us around a little bit too much because it's going to be a tactic, you know. Like John said, their manager knows that they can't play football against Arsenal or they're going to get spanked. So what they can do is work their socks off and make it difficult for us and make it a hard physical game and see if they can scrap a goal. You know, football is won and lost on moments. You know, Aaron Ramsey gets that shot slightly lower and it gets blocked and it doesn't go in the top of the net and it's a 0-0 game. Or there was one once there where Boyd was just a couple of feet probably too far forward, and if he was just a little bit further back, he gets a shot on goal. You never know. Could be 1-0 the other way. It is a game of inches. It's a game of moments, and we didn't create the same amount of chances that we've been creating in recent games, and that is purely down to the way that Burnley stop us from doing what we do. So just a quick little one for NN Gooner who mentioned Giroud not but sort of being, you know, up to his best today. It's purely down to the way that Burnley would have gone, well, you know what, this guy scored 6 or 7 goals in his last 6 or 7 games. Let's keep an eye on him. Let's make sure we don't give him space. And if there's one thing that they do well, it's they work hard. You know, they are a team that work for each other. And it just goes to show what, you know, like at the start of the season, the commentators, I don't know which commentators you guys had, but the commentators here were saying that they were so unlucky to be losing some of the games they were losing because they were only just getting done a lot of the time, and even today's another one. You know, like I said, it's just a game of moments. And another statistic that they did bring up, the commentators here, that Burnley as a town has some of the best support per sort of capita, as in there's no Liverpool, Arsenal, Manchester United shirts in Burnley. They are all supporting their club. So when you go there, you're going to know about it. They're going to be on the referee's back. They're going to be trying, you know, every trick in the book, and, you know, fair play to them. Good on them. They are a passionate crowd. They're a passionate town. They love their team. You know, they're gonna try to sway the referee. That's just what they're going to do. But look, yeah, I don't know, Chris. I think maybe there was a couple we went down a little bit too easy there. But overall, yeah, look, they're going to be a bit more physical than what we are, I think, and they're probably going to give away a lot more fouls than what we are. I'm not sure. What do you think, Jace?
No, I tend to agree with you, Dom. I think there were a couple of times we did go down. They were employing it. If you've ever watched like the NBA here, whenever Shaquille O'Neal was in his prime, you would have heard about hack-a-shack, which is where teams knew they couldn't guard Shaquille O'Neal, so what they would do, they would just foul him. And pretty much each player on the other team would take turns fouling him every time he got the ball. And it was sort of hack-a-gunner today out there for a while. And the first half had absolutely no rhythm, no flow whatsoever. Even some of the fouls we gave away were a little, they were. The one thing I will say was Martin Atkinson actually was somewhat fair in the fouls that he did give. But it was just one of those things where it was almost tough to watch because it's another stoppage in play here. Here we go, and then I think the win there as well. Burnley definitely trying to keep the ball up in the air as much as they can and off the ground so that we couldn't dominate them on the ground. So it was just But I think Dom is right. There was just a lot of times when we I think not a lot of times a couple of times when we went down maybe a little too easy. But at the same time, a lot of the stuff that their players were doing as well, we're just sort of cheap. We know we can't hang, so we're going to do whatever we can to annoy you and frustrate you.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I mean, the foul count, if you are interested, 14 fouls from Burnley, 6 from us. But then equally, if you look at, I mean, shots on target, 3 in favour of Burnley, 2 in favour of us. Shots wide, none for Burnley, 5 for us, and we had 65% possession. So, like you say, I suppose we're going to have a lot of the ball. They are obviously going to try, and it's almost that kind of urge to get the ball back is going to create those niggly fouls. So,
Can I just say quickly, Chris, on the
go.
Burnley fans? I know you obviously were saying that they were maybe appealing for some fouls that weren't and things like that. If that was the Emirates and every single Arsenal fan was screaming every time that one of our players went down or whatever, I couldn't give a shit. I'd applaud every single one of those fans. Scream all you want at the ref. Use the home advantage. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what I want fans to do. It's I know sometimes it makes it a bit pantomime villain, and they do the cheer when they get a free kick in their favour and but that's part of football. That you always, when you're watching a game as a neutral, that's hilarious when the referee gets a cheer from the home fans because he's given them a free kick. That's what you want from your home support. Be completely biased during the game when you're watching it, because that's what you're there for. You're only there to support your team.
Yeah.
Spot on, John. Just quickly on that. Sorry, Jace. Manchester United have probably won titles because of that reason.
Yeah.
You got to make your home ground an absolute cauldron. You need to make it a very, very intimidating, difficult place to come. And if that's going to help, then that's what you do. Sorry, Jace, keep going.
No, I was actually going to say, if you do want to hear some clever, I know it made its rounds on the internet, just in case somebody's not seen it or wants to go watch it again. Our fellow podcaster Arsblog was picked up on the American feed a couple of weeks ago at the Emirates, and became sort of a viral sensation over here. And everything was about the referee, and it was great. And it was, come on, referee, and they put great subtitles underneath it and spelled them wrong, and it was perfect. But no, if like Dom said, you can win titles by influencing. It's going to be tough for one person to withstand the jeers of 60,000 people, and it's going to make him question his call just a little bit more. And like that can influence games and win you. I would probably say at least 6 points a season if you're using it correctly, and how probably Fergie used to use it and United didn't. But yeah, it's one of those things that if we had done it, stand up and give them an ovation, because that's what the fans are there to do.
Yeah, I think like you guys said,
not cheer the team on. We're just there to boo the referees. That's the only reason we pay tickets.
I think, like
just
you say,
to boo referees.
It's one of those games, and like you say, Man City went to Burnley and lost 1-0. Manchester United lost there a few years ago. Like you say, the atmosphere gets, especially it's a tight ground. We remember from being at Highbury, the atmosphere can like Dom said, can essentially win you points if you can get behind the team and force teams out. So obviously there's not a huge amount to talk about. So I've got a couple of subjects to bring up. But like Dom's just said, if any of you guys watching, or girls, have got anything that you'd like to bring up with us, just pop it in the chat box. If you can try and keep it sort of match related, that'd be good, just so we can avoid the maelstrom of transfer talk. But I'm going to just sort of bring up, I want to come to each one of you on your opinions on this, and we've had a question on Twitter about this in a minute as well. But the midweek friendly, which saw the returns of Debuchy, Jack Wilshere, Mikel Arteta, and the lesser spotted Abu Dhabi. That's another 4 players potentially coming back in. Oxlade-Chamberlain, no one seems to be 100% sure, but other than him, it seems like we'll have quote-unquote a fully fit squad going into the run-in. Somebody asked us what their, in fact, I'll give them some credit, on Twitter it was Spaceman Spiff, got to get that right, at Boo Boo Benar, and he was saying, what would your starting lineup be against Chelsea? Now I know that's a little way away, but I guess the overall question I want to ask you all is, with a fully fit squad, would you make changes for specific fixtures now, or would you keep it exactly the same, barring anybody getting injured, of course? I'll start with Dom.
You don't change your winning side. For someone to come in, it needs to, for me, be either through fatigue or injury, or you can probably get away with rotating a couple for the cup final, and maybe. What I've noticed with Arsene Wenger is that when something's working, he's not going to be changing it a whole lot. He might make 1 or 2 changes, but he doesn't like to upset the balance and the flow of the team. So I'd be trying to keep it pretty similar to what's been working, and for someone to get back into the side, maybe I could see Debuchy coming back in once he's fit and ready. Maybe he might get a run in the cup game against Reading. But yeah, look, I wouldn't be changing too much in the running unless you got to make these players work for their position and earn their spot. You can't just be dropping people to playing well. You can't be, it doesn't send a very good message if you just start hooking people off and putting injured players back in without them actually really earning their spot back in again.
Yeah, 100% agree with all of that, to be perfectly honest. John, you got anything different on that?
No, for the most part, I agree with Dom. I'd say maybe Debussy would probably be the most likely to come back in. Just because, not that Bellerin's played bad or anything. I mean, he had a few wobbly moments today, but I don't think that was necessarily his fault. That's just more of an age thing. I don't think Wenger probably planned on him playing that many games this season. I mean, if he didn't play from now to the end of the season, if I was him or as a fan, I wouldn't be disappointed for him because he has played a lot of football for the age he's at. Not saying that will happen. I think he'll get more games, but I do see Debussy coming in. Arteta maybe gets a run in the FA Cup in the semi-final against Reading. It's one of those sort of games, big pitch, just sort of controlling the ball. The only one I would say is perhaps the Chelsea and the United away game is whether you keep, although Cazorla has played very well there, is whether you keep Cazorla in the middle next to Coquelin, and whether you say, well, actually I'm going to put Ramsey in there just because he is that bit more bigger and physical. Not as a knock against Cazorla and the job he's done. I think he's done great performances there, but I just think in those types of games that maybe is a better idea, and you have a Welbeck wide, instead of a Ramsey, so then you have that work rate back and forwards.
Yeah,
that would really be it, and then other than that, it is just a case of fatigue and rotation. But I think we've got the one midweek game. Up. Sunderland, I think.
Yeah, I think
is the only midweek game we've got, and that's not till May.
Yeah, towards the end of the season, and it's been sandwiched because of the cup game.
So, I mean, other than that, it's maybe the Chelsea Man United game, but Debussy probably out of those ones that's played, the only one. Obviously, Diaby plays in the final, whether he just comes on for 5 minutes, comes on the final. Hopefully it is against Liverpool, breaks Gerrard's legs, scores the winning goal, and then just before the game even finishes, just takes his shirt off and just walks off the pitch just waving.
Yeah. Or just takes his shorts off and just Windy Millers around the pitch.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be fine with that.
Yeah.
I'd be absolutely fine with that. Jace, just on the same sort of question, your thoughts, and also just to sort of sandwich in or crowbar in a question, which we had from Nadudur, I think that's how you pronounce it, and he or she was saying, does Welbeck have a future in the team besides a sub? Just kind of elaborate on that within your other answer of the question, if you can.
Yeah, no, I actually agree with John about maybe the Santee Ramsey debate in midfield. And I actually would probably I personally would most likely would keep Santee in and then and drop possibly Ramsey and bring in Welbeck just because he's got that little bit of pace that we can really attack with and use. And I don't think he's going to displace Giroud as our top forward and the man who leads our line, but I think he can easily in this team get 15 to 20 starts a season just through injuries, much less if he catches good form. You got to continue to play him. I really like what he offers going down the right and being able to cut inside and be comfortable in the middle as well. You start to think about the different possibilities with Walcott and him up front late in the game. If you start Welbeck and then you bring Walcott on for Giroud, but I don't think, Dom said it best, you don't change a winning side. You want to keep that momentum and maintain that flow and that chemistry that the team has. And only tweak if it's really necessary, or if you truly think that the matchup you're tweaking it for is one that you know is going to pay off dividends. I would like to see Debussy come back. Love Bellerin, but would like just that steady experience and presence in the squad. And let Bellerin come in late in games, maybe when we're up a goal or two, how we did a couple of years ago and a couple of times this season with Gibbs and Monreal, and just provide a little extra defensive cover down the wings. When we know that teams like this are going to try to get it wide and just put crosses into the box, late in games to see if they can't find somebody's head to score an equalizer or a winner against us. So I think being able to do that and have that flexibility now that these guys are coming back is going to be great. Looking forward to seeing Diaby sign his new contract as well after an outstanding performance against players that aren't anywhere near the talent level required to play in the Premier League. But no, it's good that he's back. He's one of those guys that you have to feel sorry for. You can't hate him because it's not like he have him back. Our good buddy Tim, I think Tim is watching. I don't have the YouTube chat box up, so hello Tim. But Tim had a great article on Gunnerstown about where Jack does or doesn't fit into this squad whenever he comes back, and it's definitely a good read. So go check that out on Gunnerstown, and it's really the box to box and who is going to fill that side of Coquelin for the rest of this season and going forward into next season. So definitely check that out.
Yeah, good shout and good bit of promotion there.
Just quickly on Welbeck, sorry, Chris.
Yeah, no, go for it.
There was some talk in the chat box. Sorry, I can't remember who it was. I've scrolled way back and missed it somehow. But someone was basically saying, it's horses for courses. So I think it does depend on the opposition you're playing. Like having Welbeck up front today against Burnley isn't really going to be, much point in that because there isn't going to be space in behind. They are going to sit deep. So he's not going to be able to stretch the teams. But when he came on as sub, because Burnley are pushing, that's a perfect chance to bring him on. Whereas you might say, you could bring Walcott on for that. Walcott, you can't really play through the middle because he won't hold the ball up. Welbeck can do that and run with the ball, and he can stretch the defence and drag Burnley back up the pitch, to the end where we want them at. So I do think it does depend on that. I think Arsene looks at Welbeck. I don't know whether he sees him as a striker or a wide player. It will be interesting to see, but when he first came in, I wasn't excited, but now I am much more excited every time I see him play because the work rate he gets through and what he offers in so many positions. I know it is just mainly those front three, but the fact he can play left or right is a real plus, and he can do both of them very well. And whoever's playing behind him has that confidence. If you're Bellerin or you're Monreal and you've got Welbeck in front of you, you've got that confidence to go forward because you know he's going to be there to help you out, and you know you've got Coquelin in the middle covering as well. Yeah. I think it's a real plus for our team that we've got that many options now.
I totally agree with that, and it's like you say, his work rate is really important to the team long term. I can't take myself seriously at the moment because, right, mate. I want to just sort of address the elephant in the room, not Tommy. I'll start with you, Jace, on this one. A few people are starting to, or are still kind of, you read Twitter tonight and you look through people's timelines. I know they brought it up on the commentary today. This result leaves us 4 points behind the club that was created in 2006. Do you think that, how seriously do we have to take this as now a quote-unquote title challenge or, potential? I've poo-pooed it. I still think that it's a bridge too far. But if Chelsea even draw tomorrow, we've suddenly got to seriously think about this being a title challenge, haven't we? Or are we still? Should we still be a bit grounded?
So you're trying to use a poker analogy here. You're sitting on like an inside straight draw on the river, hoping for the one perfect card to come out of 52. You may get lucky, and we may, and let's pray to whatever God you believe in or idol that you worship or whatever deity you don't believe in, make one up and pray to him that Chelsea fall apart because they're fucking cunts. And what wouldn't be better than laughing at Chelsea for an entire offseason because they blew the league and lost it to the old voyeurs just up in North London. I don't think it's a bridge too far. I do think it is still a possibility. If you were to ask me to hold my breath, I would not. Just because their run-in isn't very difficult. I don't think. It's been a couple of days since I looked at their schedule, and I don't really care that much about it. But I did look at it just for sort of the purpose of can they drop points? And it's just going to be tough. Mourinho teams don't routinely drop points sort of more than 2 to 3 a month sometimes, and they're very good at rebounding after losses, which is why even if they were to to drop a few points and we were to pick some up off of them, I still think it's a far reach. Doable, but probably not worth betting your life savings on.
No, that's a fair point. Dom, I'll come to you next. I should say as well that remember Sebastian Squillaci? Yeah, he's just been sent off in the French Cup final, so some things never change. Dom, just keeping on the same point really, with regards to Jace touching it there with the run-ins. I can give you those run-ins if you like. Arsenal after today. Obviously, next up is Chelsea at home. We've then got Hull away, Swansea at home, Manchester United away, Sunderland at home, and we finish with West Brom at home. Compare that to Chelsea, QPR away, Manchester United home, ourselves away, Leicester away, Palace at home, and they finish with... Well, in fact, they've actually got another 3 after that. Liverpool away, Liverpool at home, West Brom away, Sunderland at home. What's your thoughts on this sort of quote-unquote title challenge or not?
The cynic in me thinks that it's just the media having to make something exciting. You know, they're just sort of writing stories about it. I'm sure there'll be a bunch of headlines in papers tomorrow, you know, bigging up our title hopes because, you know, realistically, it's Chelsea's pretty much have it in the bag. You know, they're very close to running away with it, and that's not going to sell papers because it's boring. So they're going to, you know, the media as much as anything are going to hype it up only for no other reason, for their own benefit. As far as, you know, us fans go, I think we're a little bit more realistic. I think we realise that it would take one of the most monumental fuck-ups of all time in the league for Chelsea to blow that many points in that many games. It's not impossible. So while it's not impossible, you've got to keep, well, as players, you'd have to keep playing as if the title was on the line. And I'd prefer to be doing that than looking below us and trying to, you know, stay above City and United. I'd much prefer the players looking in front of them trying to catch Chelsea, because I think it's just a little bit better mindset, and it might hold us in a little bit better stead going into next season, rather than these top 4 battles that we've been having over the last few years, watching, you know, the results that go along below us. We're actually going to be looking above us and thinking, you know, potentially what if, you never know. But it's a little bit better position to be in, I think, than previous seasons. So, I mean, if anything, it's just it is a little bit of a step forward. It's a different mindset for the players to be in, which is good.
Yeah, I think I want to ask John actually on this. In fact, I'll come straight to you now, John. If you look at those fixtures, I mean, I agree with everything that Jason Dom have said. I still stand in the camp of definitely we've got to keep playing till the end, and you know, you certainly shouldn't just say, oh well, it's done and accept the inevitable, because it's not inevitable. But if you look at these fixtures, other than the Hull, we don't really play any of the relegation threatened sides. You know, Swansea. Well, actually, Sunderland. Take that back. We played 2.
Who lost today?
I think they'll be all right. To be honest, I think West Brom will be all right. It's Pulis; he always gets away with it. But if you look at Chelsea, I mean, obviously the obvious one tomorrow is QPR, which, granted, they should have the skill to get past them, but you know, QPR are battling for all their lives, and that's going to be tricky. And to face Manchester United, who, if they win that derby tomorrow, suddenly technically they're back in it as well. If we're going into the Chelsea game with Chelsea having dropped, let's just say they draw the next 2 games, I mean, there comes a point where you kind of just have to say the momentum is with us. Why not? Do you have anything to add to what the other 2 have said with regards to that?
I don't see it happening, to be honest. Yeah,
we're all such happy chaps, aren't we?
Sorry, yeah, no. I just don't. I mean, I look at Chelsea's fixtures and I think, yeah, QPR away, they actually do tend to struggle. And it wouldn't be the biggest shock in the world if QPR actually won that tomorrow for me. But does that mean they'll not win the league? I don't see it. I know they're playing us away, which is slightly different. I fully expect that to be a draw. Mourinho to be quite happy with that. I expect him to go up to United, draw with them. I expect him to beat Liverpool at home, just because Chelsea at home, it's what they do. You know, Palace, when they play Palace, they're at home. they'll beat them as well. I can be completely wrong, but if you said to me, Chelsea were going to sack sack Mourinho, get in Kevin Keegan and let him do the speech like he did when he was at Newcastle, when they were 12 points ahead or something, then I might go, oh yeah, we've got a chance. But to be honest, there's probably more chance of me swallowing a gob full of knobsnot than Chelsea not winning the league. To be perfectly honest, I know that's disgusting and it's really depressing, but it's progress, not the knobsnot, but the where we are in the league.
Chelsea winning the league is also disgusting, so that's fine. And one thing
maybe I would rather than, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure which I prefer. The one good thing that I think we can all agree on is at least there is no chance now that Chelsea can win the league on our ground, because a few months ago that was a realistic possibility, and I would have had to wash my eyes in acid if that had happened. So, yeah, I'm glad that isn't the case. Really sort of side subject, but on the same theme, I watched the Sky documentary on the Invincibles last night. I finally got round to watching it, and I was conscious of something that's almost happening, obviously not on the same degree, but it's almost happening to us now, what happened then. And it's that big word is momentum. And I just want to touch on the sort of the quote-unquote race for fourth place. I mean, it's quite weird not being in a position where I don't think any of us are particularly concerned about finishing in the top four. But if you look at the way the momentum's going, Chelsea's is kind of on a sort of a that way, City's is on a that way, and United's just kind of goes from that to that. You never really know what you're going to get. Do you guys all kind of agree, and Dom, I'll start with you, do you agree that second has got to be the aim, and if we do finish second, irrespective of whether we can retain the FA Cup or not, do you see that as progress? Do you see that as kind of the minimum we expect? And it will be, and surely you could agree that it'll be nice to start the season next year without having to go through a playoff to get into the Champions League again.
Oh, absolutely. I think the progress has come from the confidence that the team seem to have, where we can go away to Man City and get 3 points. We went away to Manchester United and knocked them out the FA Cup. That's where I see the progress of the team. We've always been reasonably good at sort of beating the teams that we should beat. But the big knock on it has been the amount of times that we've sort of dropped points away to big sides. So look, regardless of where we finish, I think there's been a few steps forward, just as in a sense of just confidence. I think the team, it's pretty obvious to see that they're going into these games. They're approaching them a little bit differently. So, I mean, I'm quite optimistic about next season. I know that we say it every season as far as if we just add the right couple of players, then, but nothing to do with what players we add, more just to do with the way that we seem to be going about our business at the moment. If that continues on and we finish the season strong, it's a good platform to launch into next season. So, fingers crossed.
Yeah, no, I agree. Jace, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think Dom actually hit on it quite early. When we talked about the three wise men, Dom is two of them, and then John is the other one, because everything Dom says is perfect. Because look at that hair. I mean, how could it not be? But he was talking earlier about just the state of mind of the players and not having the pressure of the fourth place battle and having to look back. We're looking out the actual windscreen now at the road ahead of us and not trying to fend off the people coming from behind now. And I think that helps that momentum. Not as much as points and games and winning. Yeah, that's great. But having that different mindset of instead of let me do enough to not get eaten by Pac-Man here, it's let me go on the offensive now and play. You play a little more freely and more openly then when you don't feel like you're being chased. And while it's still a close race for fourth, I mean, we can all sort of see that, especially with depending upon what the result tomorrow is in the Manchester derby. But I think it's the mentality that we can carry into next season is going to be crucial. Knowing that, look, all right, we probably still won't be the favorites according to the media and everybody else, but there's no reason why we should fear anybody like we have in years past. I think that's going to be a big plus for us this offseason, is really putting the attention on going for first instead of just let's see where we are at Christmas and sort of reevaluate things, which I'm sure that's not what we've done in the past, but I think that's what we've had to end up doing in the last few years.
Yeah, I think you make some excellent points there. And John, just finally on the sort of similar subject, just sort of veering it slightly to another side just to make it different, but Jace touched on it there, that the Manchester derby tomorrow, we're all going to be keenly watching it. Are you kind of in the same camp as most of us when we're looking at that being a draw potentially, or would you rather that one team beats the other to potentially put them out of the race?
I think draw is probably best. I can't remember the exact. I know United are they're 4 points behind us now.
I will look it up. United are 4 behind, City are 5 behind as we speak.
5 behind, yeah. So and they've both got the game in hand, which is tomorrow. Yeah, I mean the draw is obviously the best result. City winning, I don't know. I think United have got Chelsea next week, haven't they?
Yes, when we play.
We're FA Cup, aren't we, next weekend? Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, you could say City. I don't know. You could say City win and then United beat Chelsea next week, but City lose next week would be the best way to work it round. But yeah, I mean, I take a draw. You want to try and finish as high as possible and get as close to Chelsea. I think more than anything, the points difference, sort of going back to the mentality thing, is that the players now feel like they're good enough. I mean, I hope they felt like this before, but they seem like they've got the belief in themselves that they can go out and beat the teams like City, like Liverpool. They don't go into them nervous, especially after what happened to them last season, which is a big thing. Because I mean, if I was, I played like crappy Sunday League football, but I remember playing a team that beat us like 7-1 before, and then coming to the like sort of the away fixture and thinking, oh, this is going to be absolutely dreadful, and we were hammered even worse. Just because you just go into the game and you're already beaten. Whereas now I think the players go out and go, no, we can win. I know I said I think the Chelsea game, us and v Chelsea, will be a draw, but I think the difference is the players that come off the pitch, if it was a draw, and go, we're Chelsea's equals, rather than we got lucky and got a result, a point is a good result. It was, no, we're both equals, we really are competing for the league. Okay, we started a bit late, but I think they'll look at the injuries and say, no, it was more down to the injuries than the players missing. You had a lot of new players coming into the team as well, so it took them a while to gel. So there's been a lot of talk on Twitter about the if we had X amount of games more in a season, then would we go on to win it and all that kind of thing. It's nice thoughts, but you have to start from the first game in August. That's where we really got to start it. But if we keep this mentality into next season, like Dom says, I am pretty confident that next season we can really make a push. I don't think the team's that far away, and as long as we keep the sort of the good acquisitions that we've been making the last couple of years, then there's no reason why we can't make a run in the league, and not just that, the Champions League as well. I think that for me, the Monaco game is the biggest disappointment of the season for me, more than anything else.
Yeah, I think you make an excellent point on the Monaco game. That's the one blip in the last maybe 2.5 months now. Yeah. But I think as well it's such a fine line, because I'm glad you touched on Twitter there, actually, because I was going to bring that up. It is quite weird when I scroll down my timeline last thing at night as I get into bed, or first thing in the morning when I wake up. I say morning, it's usually afternoon, but and you see people generally quite chipper, quite upbeat, and I think. Jason mentioned Arsblog earlier on. I was listening to his podcast the other day, and he was saying that when you sort of scroll through timelines of people, and people are just there's nothing negative. They just have like a quiet week. Like when we beat Liverpool, it was just like, oh yeah, we've beaten Liverpool. That's great. My week can continue. Whereas if we lose a game, it's like the whole world has ended, and you hear nothing but crap all week. And I think to a certain degree that's the same with the players. When they're on a roll and things are going well, there's little to worry about, there's little to complain about. But just imagine if Burnley had have nicked 2 late goals and we'd have lost tonight. It would all have been off again, wouldn't it? And everyone would have been at the backs of the players again. And it's just such a fine line. So I think, granted, yes, we're in a great position, but on the run into the season, we've still got 5-6 games to go. This focus has got to stay in place. And I think if we were ever going to stop that run of the Mourinho effect, beating Chelsea, even if we don't go on to win the league, to beat Chelsea at home would make a massive statement heading into the summer. And it does make a bit of a mockery of the Invincibles Chelsea special a few months ago, doesn't it? Still makes me chuckle when I read that. We obviously there isn't a lot to discuss other than what we have today. But just want to sort of touch briefly on. I don't really want to go into transfer talk because, frankly, we've done
There's
it.
a dirty Welshman in here, sorry.
Oh, is there? Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh, there he is. Hello, Jace. All right, my lovely. We just sort of, rather than the transfer element, I just want to focus a little bit on the summer. If it's a big if, but let's say we finish the season with potentially the silverware of the cup and a comfortable second or third place finish, or even fourth, whatever it may be. Do you say, John, you touched on it already, but Jace, I'll ask you first. Do you think we're in a position now where we've got everything in place now, and maybe that one extra name or that sort of one really good pre-season where we could really go into the season as one of the favourites, rather than what we've done the last few years where we've had either a late break and come on the rails, or we've started well and fallen away? Do you think we're set up perfectly now to make a real challenge? And even obviously with Arsene Wenger, like John's mentioned, the Champions League. Do you think the plans are there to do that?
Yeah, I think they are. I think one of the big keys is getting everybody sort of healthy and fit in preseason and making sure they stay that way, and not pushing people, and making sure that we use the summer months and try, hopefully, not too many players will be going off and doing too much crazy international duty this summer. I know there are a couple of tournaments across the world, but I just make sure that everybody rests up and relaxes, because next year I do feel like we've got we're just a piece or two away. I don't know who the pieces are, but it does feel like the puzzle's almost done, and we're just this summer we can go back to the box, grab the pieces that we need, and fill it in and show it off to the world next season, and hopefully bring home some more silverware.
Yeah, and Dom, do you think that, given the squad we've got and the strength we've got, if we add on people, in fact, John's actually just read my mind because he just put something up that I was going to say. That's really weird. But I was just going to say, with regards to what we've got in place, we touched on the injury situation and how we're kind of fresh now. The Shad Forsyth influence, and not just him, but his whole team, because I'm sure he's got a team around him. Do you think that's starting to have an effect? And again, coming into the summer, do you think that we'll see even more of an effect when he's got a whole summer to work with him? I think he came in late in the summer. Obviously, we had the World Cup as well. Do you think we'll see more of his influence on how sharp the players start next season with regards to the fitness side of things?
Well, yeah, he was obviously with Germany, the World Cup right through the finish for them. So obviously they won it, so they were right there till the end. So he only really had a couple of weeks of pre-season with the Arsenal boys, and when trying to implement full fitness programs throughout a whole squad of professional athletes, it does take time to get everyone up and running when it comes to that. Look, I mean, I said it at the start of the season. Jason and I and Gimli did an injury pod special on this. A lot of our injuries were bad luck, whether people want to hear that or not. I know that they think that they want to point fingers and blame things, but there's not much you can do when Giroud gets a kick in the foot and it breaks his leg. That's not down to anything. It's not down to fitness. It's not down to training. It's not down to anything other than shit luck. Jack Wilshere's latest injury isn't because he's got glass ankles. That would have broken most people's ankles. So that's gonna, Debussy's 2 injuries. You can't train against that. The one thing that I would say that I've noticed, that I've been impressed with, is that when players other than Arteta, and he's a bit more of a unique problem, that he was getting these reoccurrence of calf injuries, which isn't great, especially when you're a little bit older. But it turned out to be a bone spur in his ankle that was causing him some biomechanical issues, and it's the calf that's the weak link there. So that kept going. But the main thing I've been impressed with, whether it's him or not, who knows, is that when the players have come back, generally you're quite concerned that they can come up with a re-injury and or a new injury because of compensation and things like that during rehab. But we haven't really had that other than Ramsey. He had a little bit of a history of hamstring issues throughout the season. I think we've managed Koscielny really well. For the most part, we've managed Oxlade-Chamberlain's tendonitis problems pretty well. But when players have come back from injury, like Ozil and Giroud and these guys, they haven't had repeat injuries, and that is something that's probably not recognised by the layman perhaps, but it's something that I've been very astute in looking that, yeah, it's definitely that. I mean, a good example is Aguero at Man City. I remember he did his calf against us last season, and then he came back, did a hamstring, came back, did a quad, came back, did a calf. That's the kind of thing that we've been able to avoid, and it means that the players can get up and running and be part of the squad a lot faster. So, for the most part, short answer, yeah, I think that he has made a bit of a difference, and because of the fact that it's, like I said, something that is a long-term plan with these things. We won't see, I said it at the very start of the season in our pre-season pods, that we won't see his influence until probably next year. So I think we're starting to perhaps see a little bit of it now, but I think next year, hopefully, fingers crossed, we may see a little bit more fit, healthy Arsenal players that are able to last a little bit longer throughout the season. But not only that, you got to look at our squad now too. We don't have Nicholas Bentner on the bench. We've got Danny Welbeck. We don't have Danielson on the bench. We've got Francis Coquelin out there running around. Our squad depth, whether you like it or not, is a lot better than it has been in previous years. So that does also play a big part too.
Yeah, excellent points. And I think, like you say, if we can get through a pre-season, I can't remember the last time that we've gone into a season with a fully fit squad. I know, we seem to always go in with a couple of key players a bit short. Obviously, the World Cup had a big part to play this year, but I do think that's an excellent point.
Can I just ask everyone a question?
Yeah, go for it, John.
Is me, or does Dom look a little bit like an Australian Ramsey? Has no one ever noticed that before?
Now you mention it, I can sort of see where you're going with it. Yeah.
A different haircut, but yeah, that really freaked me out. I was like, fucking hell, Ramsey's Australian, what the shit?
There you go. Well, while I've got you...
The only difference is I'm a better footballer, but...
No, of course, Dom. Yeah.
Obviously, it's all about you, obviously, so...
Yeah. He'll get there, give him time.
John, while I've got you, I don't want to talk names because transfers every single week the same old names come up and it's boring. So just give me numbers from the squad we've got now, and from where we are. You've got the manager's role for a second. How many are you willing to let go? Again, I don't need names. I just literally need how many you're happy to let go and how many you're willing to bring in. And there's a slight caveat to that. Of the ones you bring in, how many do you think need to be world class? And by that I mean ready to walk straight into the lineup.
How many do you let go? Okay, if it was me, it would be... Right, I'm not allowed to say names, yeah? I'm trying to do this in my head.
Trying to make it awkward for you.
Yeah, 2... Right, it's 5, which sounds a lot.
5 to go, yeah, okay.
But I'll give everyone a hint. 2 of them aren't at the club at the moment anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
So, I know who you mean for that, yeah.
But yeah, so it would, for me personally, it would be 3 from the squad, and then it would be 3 in. And 2 of them, for me, would be straight into the team. The other one would be a squad player. I think me and you talked about it the other day. I can't remember if we spoke about it on the... No, we didn't speak about it on the radio. It's in the WhatsApp group. We were talking about, not that we're going to sign him, and not that anyone wants him, and we haven't been linked with him, Vargas, who's at QPR. We're just giving you an example that he's a player who worked very well with Sanchez at Chile on a national level. So you don't necessarily have to get a world-class player. You have to get someone who works well within the team that you've already got and the system that you play. Like, you don't necessarily have to go out, if you were going to go and get a centre-back or a striker or whatever. They don't have to be, this £40 million A-plus name player. They have to be a player who works perfectly with the team you've got, the players that are going to be around them and in the system that they're in. Whether that means it's a player who's £2 million or 20 or 40 or 60, that, you just find the player. The price for me is irrelevant, and for us now it should be irrelevant what the price is, because we can go and buy the top tier, top end players if we want to. I mean, the price really wasn't necessarily always an issue. It was more about the wages than anything else. But we can play that. So whether I'm paying someone $200,000 a week or $50,000 a week, I don't care. As long as they work in the team, that's all that matters.
Yeah, I agree with that. I couldn't add anything to that at all.
Ask Manchester United about buying somebody who is a great big name. Falcao.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, what's that? Falcao, Di Maria, and Van Persie are probably three of their highest earners and don't
Never,
deserve to be in the team.
never heard of the last one. Never heard
Yeah.
of him. I don't know who you mean. Chase, are you there? I'm going to ask you all three general questions now, just to kind of make it different because we've got a lack of things to talk about. Chase, I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
You can have 3 clubs relegated from the Premier League this year. Who do you want to go and why?
Ooh, see, I'm.
Because it affects Arsenal, obviously. You know, I look at it as who would I rather
Yeah.
play and who do I not like. So I'm intrigued.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's because it's like, do you want to keep the rivalries but at the same time? I hate those twats and I don't want to play with them. We would relegate Chelsea. Obviously, Thunder cunts, the lot of them.
Should
they would
I
be bottom
preface
of
this and
it.
say realistically? Or
No. You never said You never said realistic.
okay,
You just said who do you want relegated?
okay,
So realistically, I would want West Brom relegated.
because of Pulis.
Oh, that's me. You're
Yes.
just picking on the team because of the
100% correct.
manager. That's harsh, Jazz.
It's completely fair though.
And you just have Pulis
well,
set.
It is. They didn't have to hire him. I would probably, and then probably QPR, just because they're a terrible team that they just run so awfully. The realistic team would most probably have to be. I don't know why I have this dislike for this. Sunderland. Just something about the team I just don't like.
I was going to say Sunderland.
Yeah.
Jazz. Them and Hull,
Yeah.
just because of the
Yes,
fucking
the
horrendous.
journey. Exactly. Yes, John's thinking how I'm thinking.
I'd leave Newcastle just because it's a good ground to go to. I know it's still
Yeah.
far to go, but it's a good atmosphere. But yeah,
That'd
those
be
two. Oh.
Yeah, I agree. And if I had a choice, as Hull and Sunderland for me are the definite two I'd like rid. And if I had a choice, then yeah, we can get rid of West Brom. But I kind of weirdly like to see Leicester stay up because I think Nigel Pearson is one step away from killing someone in public, which would be
that'd
quite funny.
amazing. He
The
does.
guy is-
He's definitely got psychopath tendencies.
He's mental, isn't he? Like
Yeah.
properly mental. I'd keep QPR because it's another short journey for us.
Shit
So that's
views
fine.
at the stadium, though.
Yeah, true, but it's a short journey, and it's usually a good banker for 3 points. And if we could also QPR, I like that. If we can get rid of Sunderland and Hull, but Burnley can stay. That's fine. It's a bit of a shit ground to get to, but they can stay. So yeah, we'll get rid of Burnley and Hull and West Brom. Dom, I know you've got one other thing you wanted to bring up about the game today, so let's go with that.
I do. Someone earlier on in the chat box, I think it was Nguna, that brought up about Hector Bellerin being,
Yes.
quite good high up the pitch. Something that I've been sort of scratching my head recently is the whole Carl Jenkinson situation, where it seems that I don't know why. Maybe one of you guys can let me know. Why is it that we assume that because he's had one season out on loan that's it, and he's either going to be sold or he has to be in the team? I've heard it on heaps of blogs. I've heard it on Arsblog. I've heard it on a lot of places, and it's just this is just a mentality that we get into that, okay, well, he's had 12 months out, Bellerin's been great, therefore he's gone because Debussy's here, or what? Because I can either see Bellerin being higher up the pitch with Theo being a little weasel about his contract situation, and he could potentially play higher up the pitch. He could bring Jenkinson back in to be a right back with Debussy, and or this situation is something that I still can't get my head around. Why can't we loan him out again?
Yeah.
Why can't we let him develop even further? Because you look at someone like a Seamus Coleman, who the hype was around before this season started. He's 25, 26, something like that. He only burst onto the scene, a year or so ago. So in a couple of years' time, when Debussy's a little bit too old and he loses a bit of a step and we're on the hunt for a new right back, and we've sold Jenkinson 2 seasons before, we're going to be scratching our heads going, who should we buy? Oh, that Carl Jenkinson guy's pretty good, isn't he? Oh, yeah, we sold him.
Yeah.
Why can't... And Francis Coquelin, how many years did he spend out on loan? He came back as a 23, 24-year-old.
Yeah.
So what is it? Why do we just assume that the guy has to be either in the first team playing or sold after one season out on loan?
Yeah, spot on. You can't argue that, can you? And like you say, Seamus Coleman is a prime example, because there's plenty of Arsenal fans who were out there less than a year ago saying we should go after Seamus Coleman. The guy's 26 now, and like you say, I don't think there are 3 better right backs at one club in the league, either than Bellerin, Jenkinson, and Debussy. So I agree.
To harp on Dom's well-made point again, is I think one reason maybe I'm trying to explain other people's thoughts, Dom, because you and me we're both Jenkinson fans and want him to come back because we know that he can be really good for the club someday. We start to see these kids now on Arsenal Player and everything and highlights and full games when they're 16 and 17 years old. So by the time they're getting up and we're talking about them, and we act like they've been around the club forever, but they're 23 years old. They're nowhere near the prime of their career all of a sudden. But it seems like if you're not already a worldly by the time that you're 18, you're just shit. Which is completely, if you look at any other sport sort of across the world, your peak years are like 26 to 32, 33. I would say in football you're probably looking at 24 to 30 really before your legs start to go. And I think we get so spoiled with these great. We as Arsenal fans have been spoiled by these great youth club players that have come in at early ages, and the Jack Wilshers who were great at 18 years old, and they were the next Cesc Fabregas, and we put all this pressure on them when they're so young and they're still developing and growing. But then, Don, like you've mentioned it before in other pods, is you're young, your body's developing, so now you get injuries, so now you're set back again. Well, now all of a sudden you're shit, and you're never going to make it, all because you had injuries that meant you're now getting better. You couldn't improve your game. You couldn't grow and develop a rapport with your teammates on the pitch and develop that chemistry. So you're almost having to start all the way back over once these young kids come back and their bodies develop now. And I think we as fans, and Dom, again, you're 100% right, is we've got to allow some time for these younger players to grow and develop, and it may not be here at Arsenal. Why can't we loan people out? There's nothing wrong with loaning Joel Campbell out and let him get some more games, whether we think he's good enough now or not. We have players who are better than him now, so let those players play and send him somewhere where he can get the game time. Sorry, I'm just ranting. I'm pulling a Carpenter now and ranting on Dom's great point, but it's true. It's just extremely frustrating because we don't give. We just act like these kids are terrible, but they're really only 21, 22 years old and still haven't hit the stride of their career. And we need to give them a chance to prove that, whether it's in the academy system and through loans or whatever. Let's actually give these people a chance.
Yeah.
I just don't. What my biggest point is, I don't see what is to be gained by selling Jenkinson.
Yeah.
What are we gaining by doing that?
£7
million.
Yeah.
Do we need it? No, we don't need it. What we do need is potentially a new right back in a couple of years' time.
Mm-hmm.
So what I look at and think what we could gain most from that situation is to go, you know what, Carl, you've done really well at West Ham. How would you like another season there? I'm sure. Like I've seen a lot of the West Ham tweets saying, "Hey, let's buy this kid. He's been fantastic." Why not let him have another season there and let him develop even more? And then go, you know what, Debussy, you've been fantastic serving for us, and we don't know how he's going to come back from his injuries either. That's a big unknown. He came back from a busted shoulder and a bung ankle as well. So he hasn't really come back and put together a stretch of games to suggest that he can be our consistent, injury-free, performing right back for the next 2 to 3 years. We don't know that. So I just don't understand this whole, Bellerin's been great, let's sell Jenkinson. We always look to 2 weeks ahead as Arsenal fans and as football fans. I think we really do need to sit back and think, you know what, let's have a look to the future a little bit here, because in a couple of years' time, what will Carl Jenkinson be? 23, 24, 25, somewhere around there?
Yeah. I think 20.
That's exactly the type of player we're going to be looking to buy in that time. So why not just keep him on the books?
I think part of that comes down to, as Arsenal fans, we're not used to seeing our players being loaned out within the Premier League, like for that long a period and the age that he's at, sort of the expectation that is on Jenkinson. And because Bellerin has come in so quickly and done so well straight away, And I mean, you just look at like Walcott and everyone going, "Oh, we've got to sell him," just because he's not getting in the team. It doesn't necessarily mean we actually have to do that. It's good that we had depth, and I think it's partly that you have Arsenal fans aren't used to having depth in the squad. It's just completely rare. I mean, you even look back at the Invincibles. How big was that team? That squad was tiny, really. Who was? I think they were talking about it on Arseblog actually. Who was the sub keeper?
Graham Stack.
Yeah, Graham Stack was the backup keeper. If that was the case now, if it was say I don't know Martinez or Matt Lacey or someone, everyone would be going fucking mental.
Yeah.
But we're not used to having depth in players on the team and on the bench. So that's one thing, and also it's just the instant gratification. They see the shiny player who's playing over in whatever league and go, oh, because we've got money now, we can go and buy that player. And just go and get it. And sometimes you don't necessarily need to do it. I mean, I think I said it a couple of radio shows back that I actually thought Jenkinson probably would go. It's just my personal opinion. But then, I heard Dom's argument on it, and I think he makes a really good point and a really good case for either loaning him out again or bringing him back next season. You never know what happens.
I think the one thing we can all agree, and I totally agree, Dom, it's... Go on, Jace, you want to... Go on.
Those same people on Twitter that are wanting us to sell Jenkinson are the same people that when we sell him and Bellerin gets hurt, we have no cover, are going to be like, where's our squad depth? Oh my God.
And they're also... And they're also a lot of them are also the same people that said that Coquelin had no future at the club when he came back, and they're all whinging about why we brought him back instead of signing somebody. So, what do we know? I think the one thing we can all agree on is that it's encouraging that we've got so many options now, whereas before we were all crying out for these players, and we've now got options. and I think the only it's not even devil's advocate. The only fact that none of us are taking into consideration here is what the player wants. And I think that we've seen it before with Arsene Wenger. If a player comes to him and says, look, I want to play football, he won't stand in his way. And I think that's the only thing with Carl Jenkins. And we all know he's a gooner, but, Theo Walcott supports Liverpool. So just because they're a massive fan, and I like Jenkinson, and I agree with Dom. I think he's still a big potential for him to have a career at Arsenal. But if he comes back in the summer and Arsene Wenger says, look, this is the situation, I've got 2 right backs and you're behind them, West Ham have come in for a bid, it makes financial sense whilst we don't need the money. If it makes financial sense and the player wants to go, I don't think we would stand in his way. But I'm 100% with you guys. I think we should be adding, not taking away, would be my...
What I would say about that, Chris, is that if he was already 26 or 27... and his development was done, I would completely agree with that. However, it's been pretty adamant for everybody to see that at West Ham he's become a better player.
Yeah.
And another season on loan, he's only going to get better again. So, if he comes back and I'm sure if the manager says, hey, look, you're not in my plans for this season, however, I want you to be our future right back when Debuchy goes. It'll be you and Hector Bellerin. You need 2 players in each position. It's you need. I don't see why he'd have an issue going. Yeah, cool. I'll go do another season at West Ham and I'll come back. And then if something happens or if his form goes to crap or whatever, you can still have the option to go, actually, nah, we'll sell you because you just didn't perform. Or someone else has come along and taken that opportunity and bad luck, sorry, son. I just don't see what we gain from selling him. I really don't. The other little one that I wouldn't mind bringing up really quickly is the Ramsey versus Wilshere argument, because whilst we all say, who gets that central midfield position, my argument is I've never seen them both fit and in form at the same time to even have to make that decision anyway.
Yeah.
So when that happens, let's talk about it then. But in the meantime, we need both of them, because every time one of them's injured, the other one starts playing and gets in a bit of form, and then when the other one comes back, the other one gets injured. So it's not really an argument that even needs to be made. You need 2 good players in every position. When Koscielny came off injured against Liverpool, Gabriel came on, and no one even knew the difference. And that's what you need. When Monreal doesn't play, Gibbs does a pretty good job. You're not going to sell Gibbs in the summer just because he didn't play for the last half of the season. There's nothing stopping him from coming out, taking his chance, and then making him undroppable. Because there was a time, maybe 18 months ago, where Gibbs was the first choice. And then
Yeah.
Monreal got an opportunity because Gibbs got injured, and he's made it impossible for Gibbs to get back in the side. That's the kind of competition for places you need to be a title-winning side.
100% agree. And also, just to sort of draw a line under that, that's exactly why we need to go out and get another central defensive midfielder, because there will be a time when Francis Coquelin will slip in the bath and break his leg and be out for 6 months. It will happen. So, and I joke, but, we are legitimately an injury to Coquelin away from having the same problem that we had at the start of the season. So, what I think Mikel Arteta is absolutely fine. It's absolutely fine by me for him to sign another 1-year contract and be part of the squad, because I think we need that experience. And we touched on it on the last radio show. I think his experience off the pitch as a captain is just as important as it is on the field. And I think somebody made the point in the week I was listening to it again. It might have been us, but I'll give him many shouts this week. But I think he was saying that he was sat amongst the coaching staff last week in the game rather than where the players were.
I was just going to ask you to bring that up, because I think if you look at anybody on the team right now, I think Arteta would probably make the best coach.
He's made for it, isn't he?
Yeah, he really is, and just he didn't have the most talent in the world, and those kind of guys have to work to get where they are the most, and aren't gifted with like the Ibras and the Messis and the Ronaldos. Not that those players don't work and do a good job, but for Arteta, he's got the on-field leadership. He's got the persona that you want. He communicates very effectively, and I think that's somebody who we need to start sort of now in that 1-year contract, start grooming and putting in place for if Wenger does ever leave.
Yeah, I agree, and I think from what we've heard from sources quite close to the club, and anyone you speak to, Arsene Wenger holds Mikel Arteta's opinion very highly. And I think if a man as intelligent as Wenger trusts him, then that says a lot to me. Final question, and I literally want a one-word answer from you all on this one. We're going to touch on the FA Cup game in Thursday's pod, I'm sure, but just as a preempt to that, who would you prefer, subject to us getting through? We're not taking anything for granted because we've got to beat Reading yet, but let's just say we do. Who would you prefer in the final? Tactics Tim or Brendan's Lips? John first.
Oh, that's horrible. As long as we win, then yeah, I'd rather have Brendan's Lips. I couldn't stomach losing to them in a final, because they'd go on about it for 30 fucking years because they just won one trophy. Fuck off, you Scouse cunts.
Yeah, amen. Jace, do you have the same view, or would you rather have good old Tactics Tim?
It's really, if and I don't think we will, I think we'll win. I've gone on record as saying that. If we were to win, I think a win would be sweeter against a Liverpool side. But goddamn, if Tim Sherwood had fun to watch on the sideline, like that would just, I would want my own camera feed for that, just throughout the whole game. I would rather play Liverpool, big FA Cup final, big teams, big games, great atmosphere, and always sweeter when you beat the Scouse twats.
Fair enough. Dom, is it a full house, or have you got a different take?
If you're guaranteeing me a win, obviously I'd prefer to beat Liverpool. But since that's not the case, I'd prefer to Villa in the final, just because I think it would be, on paper, an easier game, and I'm all about the trophies. I could not give two shits who it's against. It's an FA Cup.
I'm with you on that. And we all know that Tim Sherwood is a gooner, so if there was ever going to be any slight advantage, you'd like to think that he would want to give us that. So no,
he's got an Arsenal shirt under that gilet.
Yeah,
I've just seen some blasphemy in the text box from Carlos A. Says, so does everybody agree that we don't need Schneiderlin anymore? Get out.
Oh dear. You're dead to Dom, Carlos. You're dead to Dom. Right.
Here is a question quickly on that. Sorry, going back to the Arteta thing.
Go on.
It's been sort of whispered to us that Arteta probably does have a 1-year extension that just hasn't been announced yet. However, if it was Arteta 1-year extension, but that means that we don't go out and buy somebody, how would you feel about that? Because I'd be pissed off.
I would be, but here's the reason I don't think that will happen. I think probably Mathieu Flamini will either get a free or he'll move on. And I cannot for the life of me see Arsene Wenger making the same mistake he made with the centre halves. I can't see him letting one go and not bringing in. For all what we've heard, I just can't see it. I agree with you. I think it would be madness. And let's chuck Diaby into that argument as well. If Diaby proves his fitness, I do not want us to say, well, that's fine, he's back now. We just can't do that. There's just no way that we can go into the season next year with what we've got plus Arteta and Diaby. Nah. I really hope I'm right there, because if I'm not, people are going to lose their shit if we don't get anybody in. But at the same time, it's got to be the right player. If Schneiderlin is the man that everyone wants and he's available, let's go get him. Let's not fuck around this summer. Let's ask him what they want and let's pay it and get it done. And if he's not the one, or if we can't, for whatever reason, get him, let's make sure we get our business done early and get the next best thing. That would be my answer to that.
I have one more quick little point on that. Just one more. The people that are saying that Schneiderlin is more of a box-to-box and, this person does this person does that. We just spoke earlier and we were discussing that Coquelin was a box-to-box midfielder. He ain't doing that for us. No. It's quite conceivable to be able to tell a human being, hey, can you please do this? You are a professional athlete. This is the position we would like you to play for us, and that they can actually go out and do that. So, yes, he might play a slightly different position for Southampton, but it's because Wanyama's next to him. I've seen him play a defensive midfield role when Wanyama's been out and Ward-Prowse has been in midfield. He's not a complete moron. Players are quite capable of changing position, and Arteta's an attacking midfielder playing defensive midfield. So the whole argument, Schneiderlin's a box-to-box, we don't need another one of those. It's not Football Manager. These guys are more than capable of following instructions. So keep that in mind.
Even in Football Manager, you can retrain someone's position.
Exactly. I was just going to say that as well. That's the other thing. People seem to think that, well, if we sign a player at one club, that's where he'll play. Anyone remember Kolo Touré? We signed the guy as a right back, and he ended up as a central defensive midfielder, then a centre back. He played up front against Chelsea.
Yeah, fucking hell, Coquelin was a left midfielder.
Exactly. Yeah. Thierry Henry, one of the greatest strikers in our history, came as a right winger. So, there's that argument is fodder for me. Right, I'm going to close things off, gentlemen, because I haven't eaten all day and my tummy's growling at me. But before I do, it wouldn't be a radio show without asking you all if you've got anything to plug or anyone to speak of. Let's go reverse order. Dom, you got anybody you want to give a nudge to, or anything you want to promote or chill or anything?
Nah, I'm all good. Just thank you to all the people in the chat box for listening in and getting involved. It gave us something to chat about, because the game was a touch on the boring side, but it was 3 points, so hopefully it's all quiet on the home front and we can all enjoy the win and move on to Wembley.
Absolutely. Jace, you got anybody you want to give a nudge to, or anything Rail Hawks related you want to plug?
I just want to shout out a good friend of mine. You can find him on Twitter at Gunnar Gimli. Our good friend Russell Hobbs. We definitely we felt his absence and on the podcast, and also do want to shout out the podcast as well from Thursday about the tickets, because it was a great, insightful podcast from Jeff and Mark and Tim and Raj and everybody that was on there did a great job. And last but most important, thank you to everybody listening now. So that we're not just 3 idiots talking to each other.
Well, we are, but that's fine. People still listen.
Okay.
And also, I should just say that Gimli's not dead. That did sound a little bit like he'd passed.
No, he's not.
I hope he's not dead, because
that was a terrible eulogy. If he has,
I was going to say that's a horrible eulogy. I hope Gimli is fine.
No.
I'm sure he's fine now.
He is. We've spoken today, but he will be back. But
he will be back.
But he is missed, and yes, everybody misses his dulcet Welsh ginger tones, as Raj said.
May he rest in peace. John, anybody you'd like to shout out or anything?
Well, yeah, okay, dead Gimli. No, not dead. No, thanks to all the people in the chat box and all the questions, people on Twitter and all the follows and questions you get through there, and just a little gentleman's nod, as we would say, to Danny, who is not feeling very well today and also has a poorly cat.
Yes.
Go give Danny some love.
Yeah,
No,
poor
no
old,
real spider pictures. Send him pictures of, I don't know, cat or something. Something
poor
to cheer
old,
him up.
poor old Betty came in with a boo-boo, and it's
Yes.
costing quite a lot of money because he hasn't got insurance, you silly twat, Danny.
Yeah.
It's his own fault, no sympathy whatsoever, but I hope Betty's all right. I just want to do a couple of quick ABW plugs. As always, a shout to our Canadian gentleman, Jeff. Evening, Jeff. Just for all the work he does with the blogging site, and obviously follow the Bergie blog site. Also, John, Jace, you already mentioned it. The podcast from Thursday was excellent. Give that a listen. Some really genuinely insightful stuff, and particularly for our foreign listeners who may not feel the sort of things that go on with the English game. It's very much worth listening because you'll learn an awful lot. So definitely a shout for them. Also to Tom, Mr. Canton, who will probably be listening to this. He's running our Instagram channel at the moment. He's doing an excellent job. And don't forget, anyone that's been at the game today, or even if you haven't and you've sat at home and you've taken some excellent pictures of the TV, which I have a habit of doing, please give him a shout to Tom on Instagram and he'll post up the best ones. So thank you to Tom.
Also, just quickly, if you see Tom in the street anywhere and you are a man of a certain age, probably 35 plus, make sure you give him a hug.
Give him a hug.
And try and get a picture of it as well and send it into the pod account. They'll love that.
He'll understand why, and hashtag it with Hugs for Canton. And the final one I want to give a shout to is our very own Philippe Philop. He's listening in. God bless him, Mr. Davies. People genuinely think we don't get on. Like, we do. I'm coming to see him in a few weeks. Well, I'm not coming to see him, actually. I'm coming to Cardiff, and I'm going to try and avoid him, but I'm sure I'll have to say hello. But no, we do get on, and Jace does a really, really good job on the Facebook page. Like, he does... Yeah. Genuinely, his first thing he does in the morning when he's having his morning wank, and the last thing he does at night before he has his nighttime wank. So no, he does do a fantastic job. So a nod to Jace for the hard work on the Facebook page, and he's also always the first one to offer to do anything when we need it done. So thank you, Jace. We love you dearly. And thank you to Paderborn because they finally won a game today. Well done, Paderborn.
Oh yeah, thank you, Gladbach.
I
said be nice to Danny, but you can be nice to him, but also go ha 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 ha. Dortmund lost.
So that was an ABW radio show. Thank you very much, Dom.
No problems. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure, never a chore. Thank you, Jace.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
No worries, mate. Enjoy your hangover. And thank you to John.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for having me, guys.
No worries. Thank you all again, all for listening and contributing. Appreciate it. It's been a quiet day, but no doubt we'll have plenty to talk about when we play Reading next weekend. So tune in for the pod on Thursday. I believe Jace is hosting, so give him some love. And we will be speaking to you all next week. Thank you again, and good night. Cheerio.